I could present to you, introduce JC, and you could talk more about the home.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is JC Henricks. I have been in the manufactured and modular industry for about 10 years. Before coming and working with homes, I spent about the last 10 years or so working with Palm Harbor Homes in San Antonio, which is one of the leaders in the industry. And my role there originally was sales for a couple of years, and after that I spent about 8 years as operations, meaning my job was to help with financing for both manufactured and modular, and in this case, modular is what we're discussing, with FHA loans to help make sure that all the permits went through, to make sure that we were legal on everything, so that when we were audited both by the internal audits from Palm Harbor and Cavco, which is the parent company, and also audited by TDHCA and as well as HUD, that we wouldn't have any problems. So I'm coming before you. I'll keep this real brief because I know you're all busy and I don't want to bombard you with information. But what we're doing, the homes we're putting are what they call modular homes. A lot of people tend to confuse manufactured and modular because they're coming from the same factories. And so what they do is the manufactured homes themselves have had kind of a bad reputation over time, you know, trailers and mobile homes and whatnot, which is why the government had stepped in 1976 and kind of started regulating everything more and more every year. The modular homes that we're putting in are actually considered site-built when it comes to appraisals. And this isn't my opinion, it's not the opinion of Comfort Homes. This is actually from VA, the FHA. And so I'm going to read you a couple of quick just tidbits from their websites, not from us, to show you what I'm talking about. So the VA website says that manufactured homes are mobile homes, which typically come in single and double wide form. Modular homes, which is what we're putting into these houses, or on these lots, are built in sections in the factory, transported to the site. Very similar. Local contractors typically assemble the pieces, they'll put them all together, and then the finished home is then inspected by local housing officials to ensure it meets the codes and standards. So it has to still, we still go through all the engineering, and we have to have an FHA fee inspector come in and inspect it each step of the way. Now, the finished pieces remain inside the factory and are not exposed to outside conditions until it comes time for transport. Depending upon the look, it's sometimes tough to tell a modular home from a traditional single-family residence. Unlike manufactured homes or mobile homes that must only meet a standard U.S. Housing and Urban Development or HUD housing code, modular homes also need to satisfy local regulations. To give you an idea, and this is all straight from the VA website, to give you an idea, when they go to build manufactured homes, which is your mobile home, and that HUD regulates, you can do 2x3s, 4 studs. You don't need 2x4 construction. I'm sure most of you know that your homes that you have, site-built homes like stick-built, typically have 2x4 studs, you know, and that's 16-inch on center for the, you know, the greatest durability. Well, when they do modular homes, they're actually built with 2x6 studs on the walls. They do 2x8s for the floor joists and for the roof as well. And the reason they do that is it allows for the insulation to be thicker so that we can meet those kinds of standards. Manufactured homes have very low standards, which is why they tend to depreciate in value. The modular homes, on the other hand, because they're built to local site-built codes, when they go ahead and appreciate or do the or appraisal to get a loan and FHA loans, they're going to compare them not to manufactured homes. They will actually go ahead and get comps from local site-built homes. A lot of people's concerns are the manufactured homes depreciate. We all know mobile homes go down in value, right? Well, a lot of people's concerns is, hey, you're going to put a mobile home in here and local prices of the houses will go down, or at least their appraised values. But modular homes, because they are appreciated, or because they are done and tied down to the ground and cannot be moved once it's down, they're actually tied to a foundation system, which you see in one of the pictures. Once they're put down there, they will appraise to other homes, which means they'll actually appreciate, just like regular site-built homes, which can actually build, you know, help the community out. Now, FHA, you know, federal funded to help with loans and stuff, says on their website that there is no distinction between modular and site-built homes as far as appraisal or financing. Banks and lending institutions treat both types of construction the same. Likewise, there's no difference in insuring the modular property. And then it goes on to talk about modular buildings are treated the same as traditional stick-built buildings for financing. Mobile homes, which are not modular homes, are more difficult to gain financing due to their depreciation. Modular buildings actually can be better than traditional buildings to finance since they reduce the amount of construction time. And it goes on to talk about how reduced construction time means that there's less interest for the customer, and it makes it a better investment for the lenders. It also talks about too, it says it also talks about how the faster payment, less than interest are accrued. It says also modular home builders have an easier time since the manufacturing facility is a known value to bankers who can respond to any request for plans of quality control. And that's again part of the difference between manufactured and modular. When you go to get an FHA loan and the lenders are backing it, like Cascade Loans and RH Lending and various others, large institutions, when they get to do the loan on these, they need to, before we even start to build the concrete runners, they will actually require blueprints or plans from the engineering department of the manufacturer, which won't even, until it's about a week out from construction, they can't get it to us ahead of time. It's actually done by engineering, has to be approved. Once they do that, then we'll send that to an engineer. The engineer will go ahead, do all the little pictures, whatever he does for the concrete runners. Concrete runners are then formed up. At that point, we have the engineer go back out. It's an FHA licensed engineer, and he goes out and does an inspection. Then they pour it, comes back out, does another inspection. So there's a whole series of them. With manufactured homes or mobile homes, you can do a concrete runner just the same, but you can just use any, like one from was built 5 years ago, because they're all the same size. But when it comes to modular homes, they are considered site-built because you don't know where the drops are coming specifically for like the hookups and stuff.
Excuse me, sir.
Sir,
To my best recollection, you said that there were going to be concrete pads.
they're concrete runner systems. Yes, sir.
Concrete pads.
Uh,
To the best of my recollection, I think that's what you. To me,
That's a concrete runner system. They cannot put an actual pad because we're not building it from the ground up on site. What we're doing is we have to build them like that. I'm sorry. We have to build them like that because that's where all the supports, all the weights placed down. And then once we do that, they're actually, the straps themselves are put into the concrete and bolted in. So once it's put down, it can't be moved. But they have to do that because that's the only way we can do the hookups. Because the house isn't built from the ground up where we're plumbing it up right through the pad. 'Cause if it was a full concrete pad, we could build it through. But since we don't do that, once the house is built, like I said, it's engineered, then they're sending it out. At that point, we bring the house down, and that's when all the hookups are done. So it allows for us to crawl underneath and get to them.
Where are these modular homes constructed at?
You mean what?
What plant?
Well, the ones we were looking at are Palm Harbor homes. They're built out of the Austin factory location.
Austin?
So they're built, they have to be built local. We can't bring them from like New Mexico or anything like that. Again, it's to keep them within the, wind zone construction and to make sure that they're within local, like local specifications.
How long does it take for construction?
Takes about 8 to 14 days.
From
Actual construction from when the house goes, where they take the frame, start the frame itself, to where it's rolling out, and then the HUD comes out and does all their inspections on it, about 14 days or so.
But on site?
Oh, on site, it'll
On
take
site.
roughly, if everything goes smooth, without like weather delays and stuff like that, 30 days. Once the house shows up, it takes roughly about 30 days for all the, inspections to be done, all the hookups and the skirting and everything. It's pretty typical. Now, of course, the rain.
Basically move in,
Yep,
move in ready in 30
correct,
days?
yes. From when it
They're
shows up.
tied down to
Pardon me?
You said they were tied down to concrete.
Correct.
Is that the same as the rebarring that they use on the mobile homes?
Yeah, they do the rebar in the concrete for the strength, and what they'll do is there's actually, when they go to install the tie downs, instead of like a normal mobile home, what they're doing is just basically sticking an anchor in the ground, sticking it down, and that's it. The concrete actually goes down into the ground some, where you see it formed up. It goes down into the ground, and then what they'll do is they'll actually take like a little J hook, they call them, and stick it into the concrete. Because the deal behind a modular home that makes it different from your manufactured is, once a modular home is there, you can't move it because it's part of a land home package. It's not a mobile home at that point. You can't, they take the wheels, they take the axles. That's part of what modular means, and that's part of what the FHA loans require, and what the government requires for loans.
Sir, what's the value of this one?
Are you referring to what we buy it for, or what it was sold
This
for?
one here.
About 140, 130?
Did you know that there's some homes there, about a block away there, are worth, I say over 250,000?
I have no idea.
Well, then you haven't been around, huh?
Actually, I drive from San Antonio every day, so no offense, I'm just not from here. No, it's, the reason the costs are so much less, a lot of people, when they go to build the houses, they don't have a lot of waste, they're green. And so when they build them, for example, a house that's built like a regular site-built house, they have all the materials out there. You see frequently a lot of waste. You'll see the big roll-off dumpsters that they have for all the, when they cut them and all the waste materials. Sometimes you have problems with the wood sitting out in the rain, starts to work a little bit, they'll still use it sometimes. These are all built within a factory.
Is it a fair statement to say that these homes will bring down the value of those homes that I'm talking about, worth over 250,000?
No idea how much about that, how they value houses and stuff. It's not my expertise. I don't know. I don't know, I just know how they build them and put them all together and stuff. I don't know much about that. My apologies. It's not my.
Johnny Bravos and those around there.
You can build larger. I mean, they have, the largest I've seen through Palm Harbor is 230,000. Working for that as well.
What is the-
ranges? Pardon? But most of them are not that high.
What are the square footages typically of the ones that are going to be constructed here? What's an average square footage?
About 15 to 17, depending on the floor plan. It's the one advantage of building or a modular home though, is that they get a nice home that's built just like a regular house. The only difference is that it's not costing them as much. So, any other questions? Can I help with?
How about the retaining wall for the runoff for the water?
For the what? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just the manufacturer, usually the market.
Yeah. I don't know what retaining wall.
Oh, sorry. So what's the question?
You had said that you were going to place a retaining wall due to the flow of the water coming from the...
Well, that's, all the runoff goes directly to the neighboring adjacent property.
Pecan Park.
And we have been in contact with the neighbor, and they understand what the proposed development is, and had a discussion with them. So they're not concerned with the project, they're in support of it, and we've done, like I said, we have a structure that dissipates the flow, and it will spread out as it approaches the culvert downstream.
Like I said before, on the bus barn,
Yeah, that's a different situation.
I'm just saying that takes that past it, city passed it.
But
still
every
the-
project is different, that's an entirely different issue. And I already researched it, when you brought that up last time, I
That's what
had to find out what
The state property said about that too. The research that they've done.
Well, TxDOT has approved this project, and, you know, the neighbor has not experienced any flooding at any given time.
Not yet.
And with the TxDOT approval and city engineer approval and the studies we've done, there's no concerns of any flooding.
So it's not gonna go into the park? It's gonna stay on the same side where the else goes?
Yeah, it's pretty much gonna go the way it flows down.
And you get our city engineer, assume also.
Yes.
He recommends that it needs to be approved.
Yes.
And so it sits on the liability of the city, state, if it doesn't go through all the qualifications, right?
And I appreciate the presentation of the modular home, so we kind of know what's going on. But aside from that, I mean, what the actual agenda says is the lot sizes. So when you look at the lot sizes, the subdivision, you pointed out 8 of the 12 lots are not up to city code, right? So you constructed this plan, obviously you would have known what the city requirements were for lot sizes and totally ignored it and made, you know, I don't know, 8 of 12 smaller than what the
Well,
city
we didn't
requires.
ignore it, it's just the configuration of the property. And it's, especially where the right-of-way kind of angles more.
So why couldn't the lots be configured to where they're,
Well,
you know,
the
you
other
don't- you don't
thing-
need the variance, I mean, you got lesser lots.
Well, the other issue is the drainage. We have to line up the drainage from one end of the street to the other, so that plays with the configuration of each lot. So,
So you have to make more lots because of the drainage configuration?
well, there's, the lots, the way they are, they're adequate for the type of home that's being put in. And, you know, 75 by 100 is, in the city of San Antonio terms, it's a pretty good-sized lot. So being, if it's 70 rather than 75, that's a very reasonable sized lot. And we just, that's why we wanted, hoping that council would support, since we're not off the mark, the required dimensions are not off by much. And, the variance is,
And you're not,
Relatively minor.
there's 8 lots that are not off by much. We're not talking about 1 lot, 2 lots. You're
yeah,
talking about
but
8
also,
lots.
it's 12 lots versus
So
11.
like 65% of the subdivision is off.
Mhm.
We're not talking about 1 lot, we're talking about several lots here.
Right,
65% of your
but the other
subdivision
thing
is
is,
off.
the other thing is that the cost of the infrastructure to put in, which, you know, everything's, the street would be in accordance with City of San Antonio Public Works, because that's what's in your ordinance, that it has to meet those standards. There's sidewalk,
I know, but I mean, all that's we consider, I'm sure, I mean, he didn't share the actual cost of the modular home, but I mean, for 140,000, I'm sure it didn't cost 140,000 to construct that modular home, so there's your markup. I mean, so, I mean, basically, I mean, these 12 lots were constructed to maximize your profit.
no, it's, to offset the cost of the construction, it helps to have 12 rather than 11. So,
That's why I said to maximize your profit.
to,
Make
you
money.
know, there's still a lot of cost to it, so we don't know how it's gonna play out. You know, it all depends on the home sale, how much they sell for. I mean, there's a lot of factors going into whether this can be
Yeah, I
followed or
understand. I
not.
know.
So. But, again, we're not asking for it to go from 75 to 60 or anything that dramatic. It's just, this configuration works best, and we had to get all the approvals just to get to this point, to the city council meeting. We had to do the plat, do all the plans, submit the text dot, basically do all the
I understand.
design work.
I mean, I understand all that, but you're not getting something for me because you know, there's cost involved in creating a subdivision, I understand. I
Mhm.
know,
So,
I know it's not cheap.
right. So we're,
Why did the sizes of the lots change since the last time that we met?
they have not changed.
Yeah, haven't there been a couple of these lots that have actually shrunken down a little bit more since the last time that we?
No,
No?
they're all the same.
I guess I was envisioning them a little bit larger than what they are on last time for some reason. I know some of them, like this one in the front, it's kind of fatter in the middle rather than in the front, mainly because of the cutoff and
Right. it's-
easements and
it's
stuff
the-
like that.
Yeah,
You know,
the drainage channel that's in there, we have another, smaller channel going through the 2 cul-de-sacs in the back. That's 2 lots of the cul-de-sac. Yeah, but we did a lot of work just to get to this point, and we're not asking for the council to give a variance for something vastly off. And
Was this approved by the P and Z?
Yes.
The last time you came?
I don't think it's been shot down at all from P and Z,
It
right?
it has not. Phelps has approved it, Kemp's approved it.
We've had all approvals.
Um,
It's gone,
City engineers approved
it's
it.
gone really well up to, up to this point.
So the question we have is the size of the lots and the
Yeah,
drainage.
yeah, Phelps is never gonna turn down work.
It's required to get.
I mean, what I'm asking is you bring these lots up to city code, is basically what I'm asking, I mean, to approve this is bring the lots up to city code, it's simple.
Mhm.
Citizens coming. Do you want to say something?
Madam Mayor, I just have that's the question, I'm trying to figure out where this is at, this is my precinct, or what, where
Right
is it
across
going into the
from-
fire station, is this where?
Yes,
I've seen water come over Hospital Boulevard before. So they know.
Exactly.
I'm sure some of y'all have too.
Thank
It
you.
does flood,
It does.
I just will say that.
It does.
Even though it got approved, but I just wanna make that aware.
Yeah.
I've seen that whole
And
field.
TxDOT knows, TxDOT acknowledges there's overflow over the culvert, but it's not at a level where it's flooding properties, so.
Madam Mayor, is Mr. Heimer's letter available?
What should be in the packet?
I'm specifically interested in it because of the water issue.
It was in the last packet,
Was it?
Yes.
and
Did he reflect
We have spoke city
an
council.
advantage and a water supply and a sewer?
Yes.
Yes.
All engineering
Should be
issues.
in the
We
minutes.
did full plans for all utilities, streets, drainage.
I don't see it anywhere, that's why I'm asking it.
Yes, Mr. Heimer has spoke here with his approval on the drainage study and approved it.
Okay, I'm gonna go
I
ahead
think
and
you'd be
ask
interested
for,
in answering the commissioners.
I'm gonna ask for a motion.
I move to deny approval on variance on lot sizes on plat for property located at 1300 Hospital Boulevard, Parkside subdivision.
A second, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Tejada, how do you vote?
I vote with the motion.
Okay.
Can we ask for a continuance?
Councilman, Fitter?
No.
Councilman Rodriguez?
yes.
Okay. That's 4-1. It's denied.
So what action do we need now to, you mentioned you went to see 11 lots rather than what it's now.
Yeah, I think with,
A
if you're,
reconfiguration.
yeah, if your reconfiguration, the lots are up to city standards, I mean, we cannot not approve it. We
But
could-
if it's only 5 feet off, what's the problem with that? That's what I don't understand.
The discussion's over. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, now we're gonna go on to item 3E, consideration and action to approve Parkside Home subdivision plat, preliminary and final concurring and associated.
No action.
So that's
No action.
No action.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3F, consideration and action to approve a resolution in support of House Bill 816. Councilman Tejada?
Yes, Madam Mayor, as you know, in the last few elections, we've had some incidents where there's been some candidates running for office here in the city of Floresville that are not residents of the city. And in one particular case, one person was elected, subsequently removed from office, which has cost us in legal fees, court costs, has cost the state of Texas in investigators, Texas Rangers, also in court costs. There's a House bill being discussed right now in the legislature that makes it a third-degree felony for somebody to basically misrepresent their residents. And the way the caption reads is, it would make it a third-degree felony for a person to knowingly or intentionally misrepresent the person's residence to appear eligible to be a candidate for or elected or appointed to a public office in the state of Texas.
Under the state law, what's the penalty for a third-degree felony?
Lou?
210?
2 to 10? So you said 2 to 10?
That's it.
It's not live.
And this is just a resolution. I mean, the city does not have any authority to create a third-degree felony. But let's send a message out to those people that are running for office that they must live in the city of Floresville if they're gonna be running for office. It has cost the taxpayers thousands, literally thousands of dollars when these things happen.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Is there any other discussion?
I have a copy of the bill if anybody wants to read it.
Councilman, do you have any questions?
When is this coming up for?
You don't know when it's coming up because they just started the legislative process. It's just been pretty committee.
Any citizens' comments on this?
So we're just trying to create something on the local level?
No. This would be just a resolution in support of it, so that the sponsor
City
could
benefit.
say this city had taken a resolution in support. I mean, that's all you're doing is resolving to support the bill, if you did so.
I'm pretty sure there's been several candidates that have been in violation.
Lou, what happens if it's approved? Do you pass it on to the state?
You pass it on to the sponsor, and the sponsor makes sure it
You're
goes.
supporting the House bill.
Yeah, if it does pass, if we could pass it on to our state representative, our state senator, and to the sponsoring representative.
You can do that.
Okay, since we have no other questions, may I have a motion?
I so move.
Second?
Okay, Councilman, Newman,
Yes.
Councilman Guerrero,
Yes.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Now we're going to go on to item G, consideration and action to direct the city manager to get pricing for signage for the Lauro P. De Leon Event Center and City Hall.
Being in the city council, I was approached by Councilman Ortiz in reference to a question he asked about the event center not having the name being properly displayed on the building. After further discussion in reference to signage, I recommended that we look at maybe doing a more prominent sign on 97 so that you can see, so we can advertise, talk about events, those kind of things. And doing a little research, I discovered that I think it was proposed when the building was built to actually do a sign that ran somewhere between $47,000 and $50,000. But as you know, as time goes on, it changes, prices will change. And so I need to be able to have permission from you to go and to seek some proposals and some ideas in reference to this signage. Mr. Guerrero, Councilman Guerrero, has for some time spoke of looking at signage for here at City Hall. And I do believe correctly that these are expenses for signage, historical signage, as well as signs for event center that can be used for hotel motel tax.
As long as we can connect it to heads to beds, yes, we can.
So we can advertise on the event, and we can do that. We can take advertising and sales. You can imagine there's plenty of things we can do for those signs. So what I'm asking, based on that, is to have permission to go and officially look for signs, make some recommendations, and bring them back to you for signs for locating at the event center, to name it as it probably should be named, and City Hall.
And Henrietta, can we also look for sponsorships on that? Because I think, if I remember correctly, that Wells Fargo at one time had offered to pay for the one at the event center.
Well, what I found some simple proposals, I didn't see anything from Wells Fargo, but I'm going through an old file, we were able to find just one document. But yes, once we find what it looks like and you all like and the price, then we can start looking at finding maybe some sponsors to help offset the cost of the sign.
So you're gonna come back with some options, like marquee or?
Options, marquee, and just looking at, there's several in San Antonio. One guy's like, please, let me come present. I'm like, let me get permission first. You can imagine LEDs are getting smaller, TVs are getting larger. These things, and the pixels are very important, but you're gonna be able to see. We also have some that just has text on it. You can imagine 97 is a highway, and so there's restrictions on what they can and cannot do on cut sides, and they don't want to distract the drivers. And so there's one company that just was passed, and they're really excited, so you can have different colors and illumination. But I do believe that it will definitely be able to have us to advertise for what events are happening, for future events. We could sell advertisements to let people advertise whatever, farmer's market or whatever there. So it has a lot of options, and I think that was the idea from what I read, from when the sign was here that predates me. So I think that was the idea.
Madam Mayor, I make a recommendation to you, and that is, if we're gonna use heads to beds tax, I recommend that your bill, if you pass this tonight, be effective upon the appointment of your tourist board.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we talked about having a tourist board, but here we are, gonna go out and buy signage, use hotel motel tax, and we said we're gonna have a board decide where that money should go. And I understand, I mean, I know Dayton Silver back here, we went back and forth as far as the name, where to put the actual name of the person on the building, but the building itself has so many needs right now, and, I mean, to jump and say, let's spend $60,000-$70,000 on a sign, I don't think is a main priority. And not to discount what Mr. De Leon did for our country and his name being on the building, but I just don't see that as a priority. And we already discussed as far as letting another board decide what to use with the hotel motel tax, but here we're gonna sit here and say, but before we do that, let's go ahead and, put a sign out there before we go. Now, City Hall is something different, because that's your front, I do agree we need City Hall, for announcements as far as voting or, anything going on in the community, but I strongly agree with the needs of the Civic Center that, some of those other needs to be addressed. I know the hotel motel tax, you're gonna use certain things, but, like you mentioned, I think the Tourist and Visitor Board should decide that, not the City Council.
But it would be appropriate for her to commence, at least I recommend that she commence the process with your authority. But what I'm suggesting is that no action be taken on the recommendations until the tourist board is in place, so those funds can be implicated. I'm trying to tie the money.
Right. Isn't it just, wouldn't it be just a waste of time to, give her direction?
She could indicate that you're interested in having proposals that doesn't cost the city anything to take proposals.
Yeah, but, I mean, if we're trying to tie it, it's the same thing, like, hi, board, how you doing? By the way, this is what, this is
Well,
on the
it
plan.
depends on when you're gonna do the tourist board.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I'm saying, wait to get the board in place first.
And I can understand, the Civic Center for the hotel motel tax being utilized over there, but how are you gonna be able to tie it into the City Hall? Put a marquee or something
It
over here.
says historical signage as well, and so definitely, we're in a historical district thanks to the wonderful courthouse across the street, and this is a historical downtown, so we want to be able to do that. We also can do it for, downtown is definitely one of our, so we would need to do also some signage indicating turn here for downtown. But I brought this before you at the urgency of Councilman Ortiz in reference to that, but that's what the discussions that we have.
To answer the question, you have to tie that to the historic district designation and advertising the historic district. That's an eligible, specifically eligible cost.
Clarification, are we talking about a digital sign in front of City Hall? Or are we talking about historical signs and so forth?
I would like to do a digital sign in front of City Hall. It'll save a lot of paperwork, and take the paper to that door, to be able to let you know that we're open, that we're closed, advertising, the grand opening of the wonderful historical courthouse, those kind of things, Peanut Festival, we can advertise all those type of things. The mayor and I have spoken of, I guess back in the day, they had festivals downtown, and those kind of things we can advertise for events for downtown, and I know a lot of people pass by downtown.
Don't forget Commissioner Powell's name.
And, like just, like that, Lincoln, happy birthday tomorrow, even though, based on the fact that we looked at the 155th birthday of Wilson County, we discovered that, well, I discovered that December 5th will be Floresville's birthday, and I believe it will be 121. So those kind of things we want to be able to advertise, and I learned that March 2nd is Texas Flag Day. And so we want to be able to advertise those as well. So I just needed to know, I understand your point, Councilman Pinto, that was one of the top things I was going to mention to the board once it met sometime in March. But Councilman Ortiz said he really wanted to bring it forward, that was important to him. And so I just need to have direction over the council.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. No more questions.
Okay, does anybody else in the audience have any questions?
Let me make one more comment or question. Would it be more appropriate to discuss this at the refinancing of the building to possibly include that?
The sign as well?
Mm-hmm.
No, sir, refinancing and restructuring of the bond is just for the bond itself, just talk about the building itself, no, sir. But I did ask that, I mean, I met with them, it's
Not
just the
as a
building
cash
itself.
out.
What, actually, what I thought it was that, include, all the repairs that were not gonna be done with the settlement money, and include also a paving of the parking lot, but according to Victor Quiroga, we cannot add any more debt to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager to get pricing for signage.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilman Rodriguez,
No.
Councilman Nieto,
No.
Councilman Tejada.
The motion is just to get pricing,
Right.
I'll vote yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council.
Okay, now we're gonna see H, consideration and action to approve an amendment to City Code of Ordinances 153.030.
Mayor, in your package, and Councilman, in your package, and please don't get up, it's so painful to be reading. But we've met several times, and we've had several discussions. We've had a request, attached to the request itself, in reference to, from Ms. Kimberly Serrano. I believe she's here tonight. What the request is that we met with the consultant, we met with the attorney, in reference to allowing, her to move her mobile home. The only issue, different than what we had before for variance, is actually allowing her to move the home. It's actually more than 15 years old. Some of the surrounding communities have limited the age of the home. I think Pleasanton is 12 years old, ours was 15 years old. And basically what the ordinance says is that you cannot allow to move it forward. She is under a time constraint. I believe she has to have this concluded and decided if we will allow her to move that in March. I did contact several aldermen, and Councilman Tejada did agree to allow it to be under his name to come forward, to give her an opportunity to speak her case. However, staff is not recommending this. Changing the ordinance to allow a mobile home to be moved that's older than 15 years old is not necessarily, I think, the intent of what the ordinance was, which I believe was done, was passed originally in 1995 and then amended and changed in 2004. The idea is that eventually, and I don't have a comment about the modular homes, but eventually these items need to be aged out. And so the forefathers thought 15 years was old enough. Staff would have to agree and ask that you not make this change. It's not my recommendation, but it is prepared for you to change it. I believe the attorney said nice round year, so I think the ordinance that's in the package says 20 years. And so that would be what you would be considering, to allow me to do that. And then, Mayor, if you would allow me to step aside and have the requester to come and present her case.
This is an existing home already in Florida, right?
Yes, sir.
So it would be just relocated,
It
relocated
would
city
be
limits?
from Standish to Plum Street, to Plum Street is a vacant lot. There was a mobile home there before.
Yes.
That's removed. It was an eyesore, the mobile home that was there. It's literally across from the cemetery number 2. It's there. I visited the site, both, and the mobile home itself. But I have no comment on if the condition, if you'd be able to move or whatever it is, but it moved from Standish mobile home to a site that had a mobile home first, but there would not be an impact to the area itself. My only concern is that you have to change the rule across the board, the age of 15 years old.
Can we add the clause in there that states that it can be moved intercity, like, or interlocal, within the city limits, just to be relocated within the city limits,
Well, right now.
instead of bringing a mobile home from outside of the city limits into the city
Would
limits?
you like to speak to your attorney in reference to that? The language we have in the books now is that you can't move a home within our city limits at all that's more than 15 years old. You can have him to add that caveat if you care to.
I think it would mean a lot more, and it would carry a lot more weight for us to to write this ordinance in that fashion, to state that we can move it within the city limits. It's already in the city limits.
Over here.
So, I mean, it's not gonna cause any negativity or anything, any wrongdoing by moving it within the city limits. It's the fact of another mobile home coming from outside of the city limits into the city limits and, you know, within, you know, with that older age. Because you currently reside in that mobile, home, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so, I mean, obviously they're in good living conditions.
Now, do we have anything, Mindy, as far as, existing mobile homes, like as far as the skirting? You know, we prob-
She is required to follow the city ordinance as far as skirting and being tied down.
That's what I'm saying, so like skirting, so like, you know, they bring the notion of what if it's like you mentioned before, there was an ice rink. But technically, I mean, they're out of ordinance because it should have the proper skirting on there and everything else, right? So
Correct.
would be following up on that, so.
And she does have pictures that was provided of the current mobile home that she wishes to move.
And I'm sure you've been through a lot, Mr. Ron, already, so I don't think you really have to come up here and give us a song and dance. I mean, we're fine. I mean, like Councilman Rodriguez said, I mean, just really basically, if you're looking at going to 20 years, and if you can add the notion as far as, you know, moving within the city as opposed to like, you know, they live in Fall City and they're trying to bring the trailer over here. If it's within the city limits, can you do that?
Well, the way we're wording this is because we have no variance process for going beyond 15. So what we're using is an end about, if you want to be direct about it, an end about changing from 15 to 20. It doesn't say anything about where it's going to come from, or what lot it comes from, or whether it comes from San Antonio. It's just saying that your 15-year restriction is now 20.
Well,
Well, is there two
we can
separate
change the
ordinances?
ordinance
No,
number.
no, I'm not saying you can't change it, I'm just saying that's how we got here.
Okay, well, is it possible to put it in the form of a motion to state that, you know, and instead of editing the existing ordinance, to create a new ordinance to state that with being moved within the city limits, that it can, 20 years of age or less?
If you're gonna create an ordinance to move it within the city, you might as well just leave it at 15.
Can I say something? Had there been a variance that she could request for the age of the mobile home, she would not be asking to change the age of that ordinance.
Then,
But, you know, if she could have asked for a variance, she would have went that route.
then how can we find a
You
solution?
wanna keep the home in the city, is that what you're trying to do?
Yes.
Keep a cap on the number in the city?
Yes,
So we add another paragraph to this that says, providing this is a move, or this is within the city?
yes.
Okay, you could do that.
So I was gonna ask, is there two separate ordinances regarding something coming in or something relocating?
No.
One
No,
There's
ordinance.
only one ordinance
Okay.
that's proposed tonight, which is to just go 15 to 20.
Then I would have to agree with Mr. Rodriguez that we changed it or to modify it to accommodate something within the city limits, moving from one address to another address within Floresville.
Well, we have to consider the condition of the trailer,
Well, I would hope you would,
you know.
or at least the staff would.
Yeah, we would
Yeah.
want to.
Some are in better condition than.
Then we would also add the caveat of a habitable.
And I think the staff intends to do that. They're not to issue a permit just because you say it's 20 years.
If you look in your packet, there's a whole lot in your packet. You have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. H is what we're talking about, paragraph H. And I can remember it very well, only because you remember H, it was easy when you remember it. So if you look at that particular one, you can add an I or an H plus and say, you know, if it's within the city. And I would, I mean, I think it was at your recommendation I go and so I wanted to picture that. You know, so if we could say that if it's already here, is what I understand you're right, that you can move it from point A to point B because you're already here. But we need to add one little thing to say it has to be structurally sound, and we can, you know, as staff can determine what the structurally sound. I don't know the age of the one that was missing, but from what they told me, it had like, you know, half of it was really gone. It sat there for some time.
Well, here's the language that the manager's talking about. And your H language is, every mobile home hereinafter installed shall be located on a lot as herein defined and must comply with the City of Floresville Code and must be properly tied down and skirted. mobile homes must be a minimum of 1,000 square feet in area and not older than 20 years.
And must be moved within the, or,
And when we add to it, add limited to a move to the city if it's to be moved.
and
Structure
only
is down.
limited should be moved within the city limits.
So if it's
We have
older,
to add that language.
if it's older than 15, if it's older than 15, less than 20, it can be moved if it's already existing in the city of Floresville, if it's structurally sound.
Yes,
So you'd be amending it to
Past
that effect.
inspections.
past inspections.
So then
Yeah,
you
it has to pass inspection.
You have that? I'll put that in form of a motion.
Sure, please.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so what happens once we pass this, if we pass it, for all these other people that have been denied, for all these other people that are trying to move to mobile homes that are about the same age, that are not in good condition like hers is?
Well, if they're not in the condition, they don't meet that provision.
So we're just gonna listen to everybody for them.
No, you inspected the house? Or somebody did, right?
Well, we just did a site inspection.
Yes, a site inspection.
We went to a site inspection, and Mindy, you were with me at the
Yes.
time, we did go. And she's done quite a few remodeling, I've seen some, I'm not as getting better with the mobile homes than I have been before. She's done a lot of construction in reference to keeping it up. I've seen better, I've seen worse. But, you know, our concerns, we take no liability in the movement. If it falls apart, she just wait, that's her issue, not ours. But she can't move it until we approve it. And then, of course, it's the issue in reference to her hooking up her utilities.
Right.
The gas or electric, and the water, they won't come until that's done.
Right.
But the site that she's moving to already has those things hooked up. And as I said before, it was a mobile home there before that was a hot mess.
She just can't get permitted because she doesn't meet the
Okay.
current
Under
regs.
the 15 years.
Well, I so move that we allow or modify the ordinance to read less than 20 years, in good sound condition, can be moved within the city limits of Floresville.
He said 15 years.
15 or 20?
No, you-
Between 15 and 20.
15 to 20.
I heard it wrong.
A second, Mayor.
Is that the proper verbiage? Lou?
We're gonna have to work on this and bring this back to you.
Did she still get a permit?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I heard what she, and what your motion is.
One second.
Yes.
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 Congratulations.
Okay, now we're gonna go on to item 4E, executive session. A, pursuant to section 551.0712 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorneys to review the operations of the municipal court of the city of Floresville, and receive information and legal advice concerning the scope of operation of the municipal court, the duties of the municipal judge, municipal prosecutor, and municipal court employees, and the final responsibility for budgeting, expenditures, and personnel appointments. Can I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Councilman,
Mr. Nieto?
please, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice President, time is 8:40.
Turned off now anyway.